Hello, students. I wanted to spend a minute or two just recapping some of the theories that we have covered so far in this course. We began with a chapter that was called The Creative Genius for Vision, and that addressed the sort of psychology of vision, the way it is that our brain makes sense of what comes in and lands on the back of our eyeballs. And it's pretty amazing the job that gets done there. We've learned that visual communication as a academic discipline, has a tremendous variety of routes. And so what someone does or focuses on in a course in visual communication to some extent can depend upon what they want to get out of it, or where they are coming from. One of those routes was visual literacy, and so that brief video gave us quite a rich vocabulary of ways that we could talk about images. And then the chapter on the nature and power of images really was rather wide-ranging, but it talked about, um, you know, what images are, how they work, including ranging from the way cave paintings worked to the way world-class athletes use visualization techniques to the way corporations use mission statements or vision statements. We looked at tried and true principles of graphic design that go back, decades. That, as some of you noted, are largely about satisfying the viewer's interest in knowing what it is they're looking at, getting their attention, focusing their attention. And then we also looked at some avant-garde graphic design from the 60s. So this was stuff seemingly more interested in breaking rules than in necessarily pleasing the viewing audience. But it turns out some of those avant-garde approaches, we're seeing them in a variety of contemporary publications, but it really depends upon how arty it is. If it's something that seemingly has a more transactional relationship to the viewer, you need some information, it's going to give you the information, and it's going to package it or categorize it in ways that it's easy for you to find, as opposed to something that is going to be more of an aesthetic experience and possibly be visually exciting and possibly demanding upon you as a viewer. Um, and then we learned how pictures work from the viewpoint of Gestalt psychology. And so that was kind of an interesting take upon something as simple as the story of Little Red Riding Hood. But you can see that virtually everything in the picture plane, from where it is located in that rectangle to its relative size to other things, to the colors it is compared to other things, to the shapes that it has with respect to other things. Um, we also looked at photography, and particularly from the period 1935 to 1959. So that's the middle period of American photography. The early stuff is interesting for historical reasons, but it was from 1935 to 1959. That's when photography really changed people's understanding of the news. It changed people's understanding of who they were as they got to see people different from themselves and people like themselves, etc. And so that was that had a very large impact. And then we tried to understand what a French philosopher says about the way images, particularly advertising images, work. And therein, it was once again very strongly connected to language. And again, advertising and business-centric images are often going to be accompanied by language. They're very rarely going to exist without some connection to language, whether it's the caption on a picture that is illustrating or demonstrating some information, or whether it is the logo, the sort of brand identity, etc. And those insights from Roland Barthes, which come from structuralism, were echoed then when we looked at the typography, which was also from a structuralist perspective. So structuralism as a philosophical sort of move, as a approach to linguistics, seems to be very influential in multiple things that we've looked at relating to images. And so what I want you to do is try and keep this collection of theoretical approaches somewhat clear in your head, because the next assignment you're going to have, it's going to be like that first one you had were the first shot at visual analysis. And so there, what I was hoping is that you would just kind of get a grip on some of the vocabulary and be able to effectively use vocabulary to identify what in a particular image was moving or attracted you. So your midterm analytical essay is going to be like that, but now you have not only the collection of vocabulary, but you have a collection of theories in which you could ground your analysis. And you're going to get a couple of more theoretical approaches before that assignment is due. So meanwhile, I will be responding to your visual design projects number 2. And once again, after I've responded to them, I hope that some of you will be willing to share them in a discussion board that I'll create for that purpose, because I think some of you did some very nice work, and it would be great if your classmates could see what it is that you did. But again, I don't require people to do that. I'm just hoping that I can encourage some of you to do it. So I'm going to pack this up, and I will post it at the front of the module for this week. And you've got some readings, you've got a quiz. You can expect feedback from me shortly on your visual design projects number 2, and we'll go from there.